All right, video 5, we are getting two triangles. So finally we're done with parallel lines and we can move on to some shapes here, which is what geometry is all about. So we're going to understand the different relationships that we have with angles in a triangle. So we need to be able to define the relationships, solve for a missing angle, define isosceles triangle, that's important, and use isosceles triangle to set up some equations. So your first definition that you need to know, or the first thing that you need to know here, is that the three interior angles in a triangle always add up to 180. So in this picture over here, we should know that angle A plus angle B plus angle C is 180 degrees. All right. The next type of triangle that's very important is an equilateral triangle. In an equilateral triangle, all three sides are equal, so we can mark that. And all three sides are congruent. All three angles are congruent, so we can mark that as well. That's why it says equilateral. All right, and the one thing is that each angle is 60 degrees. Why? Well, because of the rule from up here that all three have to add up to 180. So if all three of them are the same and they have to add up to 180, 60 plus 60 plus 60 is 180 degrees. All right, next is isosceles triangle. So this one's really important. This one comes up a lot and it's going to show up in some proofs later on. So in an isosceles triangle, we have two congruent sides and then we have two congruent base angles. All right, and the important thing here is to know what the base is. Right, so the non-congruent side is considered the base. So let's get an example here. Let's say that xy is congruent to yz. So these are the same. That means my base is going to be xz. That's going to be the base. Now, the base angles are the ones that touch the base. So the angles that are congruent are going to be angle x and angle z. All right? This will hopefully make a little bit more sense when we start to add some numbers to this and solve for some missing angles. All right, so those are the big three triangles that we have to talk about. There is scalene. That just means all three sides and all three angles are going to be different. All right, so we're going to see actually an example of that on the first example. So solve for the missing angle here, example problem number 1. Okay, so we have a triangle. We know it's a triangle. We have three angles. So we know that all three angles have to add up to 180 degrees. And this question mark we can replace with an x because there's no other x's in the problem. So x plus 85 plus 50 equals 180. All right, x plus 135 equals 180. Subtract 135 from both sides and get 45 degrees. You could check yourself in a calculator if you want, 45 plus 85 plus 50, and make sure it's 180, but we don't really have to right now. All right, second one, solve for the measure of angle A. Oh, when I read this, I know I'm going to have to plug something back in eventually. All right, but we're going to start the same way. We're going to do all three of these have to add up to 180 because they're the three angles inside the triangle. So x plus 59 plus 84 plus x plus 51 equals 180. All right, I'm going to simplify like terms here. I have x and x is going to be 2x, and then I have 59, 84, and 51. That makes 194. And like I said, it is okay to get a negative number, which is going to happen here. And I'll show you why that's okay. 2x equals negative 14, x equals negative 7. Now this is okay. The reason why this is okay is because when I plug it back in, I'm going to have positive angles. And again, it says I want angle A, so I'm going to come plug it back in here to angle A. So negative 7 plus 51 is going to be 44 degrees. And if you want just for some extra practice, we could plug it back into here and do negative 7 plus 59, which is 52 degrees. So you could do that, but this is definitely the final answer that we're looking for. All right. So third example, solve for x. So we only have two angles this time. So this one's a little tricky, but they do tell us something. We know that this triangle is isosceles because they gave us those two marks. So since AB is congruent to AC, we know that triangle ABC is isosceles. Okay, if it's an isosceles triangle, we talked that the base angles are congruent. So if this angle is 50, this angle is also 50. And I know that they're the base angles because they are touching the non-congruent side, which is right here. All right. So now that we have three angles, okay, what we could do is we could set up our equation. 50 plus 50 plus x equals 180. So 100 plus x equals 180, and x equals 80 degrees. All right. Example number 4. So this one has some parallel lines in it. So I don't know if I talked about it in the parallel line video, but one of the big things that I like to do here is I like to extend my parallel lines. Sometimes it makes life a little bit easier for me to deal with. And the other thing that I like to do is I like to highlight the transversal that I'm going to work with. So I'm actually going to work with this one. I actually have to make this a little smaller if I want to do this. So give me 1 second here. All right, so we're going to make this a little bit smaller, and this is our transversal. So now, if this is 57 degrees, I know this is also 57 degrees because they are alternate interior angles and we have parallel lines. All right, the other thing that I know, I apologize for this being so small by the way, is I know what this angle is because 94 and whatever that angle is make a linear pair. So I can actually do 180 minus 94 and get 86, which goes right here. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find this missing angle. I'll highlight it in a different color. I'm going to find this missing angle next. So the way I would do that is 57 plus 86 plus what I don't know is equal to 180. And if I solve that, I get 37 degrees. So x is equal to 37. So I'm going to erase some stuff so you can see what I'm talking about. So this angle here, this guy, is 37 degrees. And I know that that's a linear pair with angle G. So to find G, I can do, we can do 180 minus 37. We can get angle G is equal to 143 degrees. Okay, that one's a little tricky, a lot of work for that one. We'll actually do it. We'll actually learn an easier way to solve for that in the next video. Okay, so this one, last one, a lot of information here, a lot of missing angles. So let's start with the easiest ones that we can find first. So the first thing I notice is this triangle is isosceles because these two sides are congruent. If those two sides are congruent, then these two angles are congruent. So that tells me that angle E is 44 degrees. Now, if angle E is 44 degrees, I can find angle B very easily. So we're going to do 44 plus B equals 180. So 88 plus B equals 180. B equals 92. All right, and we're good there. So now B is 92 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to list that over here. Okay, next, what do I want to solve for next? The next thing that I would look at probably is angle D. So I would like to look for angle D because I know, let me erase some of this first so we can make it a little clearer. So this is 92, this is 44. I know angle D and angle E make up a linear pair. So if I do 180 minus 44, I know the measure of angle D is equal to 136. All right, and that's important. So this is 136, okay, and that's angle D. So now I have 136 degrees here. That's a really bad 136. Sorry, let me fix that. Now, moving on. I'm going to look at this triangle separately. This triangle is also an isosceles triangle. So I know that C and A are the same because if these two sides are the same, then these base angles are congruent. So if that's the case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 180, subtract 136, and I'm going to divide it by 2 because these both have to be the same. So if I do 180 minus 136 and divide that by 2, then I should get angle C and angle A are both equal to 22 degrees each. Okay, so actually, yeah, that's fine. So they are both 22 degrees. All right, so that's going to be it for video number 5, angles in a triangle. Again, make sure you give me at least one question and a short summary so you can go back and study this when you need to. All right, I'll see you guys for video 6.